Hello students, today we will start with a new chapter of our class 10th Science NCERT textbook, that is Heredity and Evolution. So, heredity and evolution, in this chapter, first we will start with the introduction, that is I will introduce some of the terms of the chapter. So the name of the chapter itself says heredity and evolution. So let's first start with the introduction of these two terms. Heredity means transmission of characters, that is traits, from parents to their offspring. The characters that are transferred from the parents to the offsprings is called as heredity. So these characters or traits could be height, hair, shape of ear, nose, chin, etc. And evolution. Evolution is the change in characteristic of a species over several generations. Means the change which is going on in the characteristics after generation after generation, we call it as evolution. As you can see in the figure given below, first, there were monkeys, and later on, after several years, these monkeys became human beings. So, this is known as evolution. And here, the figure on the left side, you can see father and mother are given, and the offspring which is there, the son which is there, it inherits the characters. Some of the characteristics of father and mother are transferred to their offspring. This is called as heredity. So then comes variations and accumulation of variation during reproduction. So variations are the difference in character. In the characteristics, there is some difference among the individuals of a species that we call as variation. Suppose if we take father and mother, and they both have the characteristics, some similar characteristic, but the offspring do not have any of those characteristics. That means that individual is having some variation. And accumulation of the variation is the variation produced in organism, the variation that comes in the offspring during successive generations. During each and every generation, it gets accumulated in the organism. Now there are some important terms for Mendel's theory. So before going on with Mendel's rule, we will discuss some of the important terms. That is chromosome. This term you might have heard in your class 8th, class 9th, right? So chromosome is a thread-like structure which is present in the nucleus of a cell, and it is formed of DNA. And this DNA carries the genes. Genes means the characters which the parents are having. These genes are transferred to the offspring with the help of this DNA. So as you can see, this blue colored picture is given, which is the microscopic view of chromosome. It is a thread-like structure. Then comes the genes. So gene is a unit of DNA which is on a chromosome, which governs the synthesis of one protein. Gene, what does it do? It governs the synthesis of protein that controls the specific trait. So it controls that trait of the parent, and it is transferred to the offspring. And there are thousands of genes which control different traits. Then comes the dominant trait and recessive trait. So we are discussing from the starting of the chapter about traits, about characters, but traits are also of different types, means two different types: dominant traits and recessive traits. So dominant trait is a genetic trait which will manifest when only one copy of the gene is present overriding another inherited gene coding for a different version of the trained traits. And recessive trait, if we see, they can be carried in a person's gene without appearing in that person. For example, a dark haired person may have one gene for dark hair, which is a dominant trait and one gene for light hair, which is recessive. So if we see here in the figure, the dad is having a dominant brown eye and the mom is having recessive blue eye. Dominant trait means dominating. It always comes first. Means the child which will be born, it will be having brown eye. It will be having the brown eye which will be displayed, and blue eye it will be having, but it will be hidden. Recessive means it can appear without entering into the person. Dominant means dominating. It comes always first. Means if dad is having dominant brown eye, that means the child will obviously have brown eye which will be displayed, and the recessive blue eye will be displayed, but it will be hidden. Then comes the phenotype. So a phenotype is the composite of an organism's observable characteristics or traits, such as its morphology, development, biochemical or physiological properties. So what is phenotype? It is the composite of an organism's observable characteristic. Means whichever characteristic which we can observe, that we call as phenotype. And genotype is the part of genetic makeup of the cell. Means therefore of any individual which determine one of its characteristic. Genetic makeup of the cell which goes inside the body. So here if we can see, this is their purple colored flower. This is purple allele. Capital B is purple allele and small b is white allele. So the phenotype will be white. It will look white. So that is its outer appearance. Its morphology is white. And genotype will be small b, that it will be white allele. Then comes F1 and F2 generation. This is the most important thing of the chapter. F1 and F2 generation is first and second generation. So first of all comes the parent generation, right? That is the parent generation. It do not come under F1 and F2. They are totally different. Parental generation is there. Capital S is the male, and plus it will fuse with female, that is small s. So the gametes that will be produced will be one capital S and one small s. And when these gametes will fuse, the one male gamete and one female gamete, that is one S capital S and one small s. When these gametes will fuse, they will produce the first generation, that is capital S small s, that is self generation, right? And this capital S small s, this F1 generation will give us another gametes. They will fuse to give us another gametes, that is capital S small s. This is the self generation. F1 generation is the self generation. If they want to fuse, they can fuse. If they will this F1 generation will fuse with the self generation, that is any of the self part, and it will give us gametes, that is capital S small s, capital S small s, right? This way 4 gametes will be produced. In the first generation 2 gametes were produced, parental generation, and here 4 gametes will be produced. So this was the F1. So in the F1 generation 2 gametes were produced, F2 generation 4 gametes will be produced. Now comes the rules for the inheritance traits, Mendel's contribution. Mendel's contribution comes, it is the Mendel choose pea plants for his experiments. So the rule for inheritance of such trait in human beings are related to the fact that both the father and the mother contribute practically equal amounts of genetic material to the child. So this means that each trait can be influenced by both paternal and maternal DNA. So thus for each trait there will be two versions in each child, one of the father and one of the mother. So Mendel worked out the main rules of such inheritance, and it is interesting to look at some of his experiments. So now we will go through the Mendel's experiments. So what did he did? He did monohybrid and dihybrid inheritance. He did his experiments in pea plants. So first there is the parental generation tall, that is capital T capital T. This is monohybrid cross. Then we will study about the dihybrid cross. It might be in the next class. I don't know. When we will go further, we will see. Just now, let's go through the monohybrid cross. It's the parental generation, that is tall, capital T, capital T. It fuses with dwarf, that is small t. So this is the parental generation. It produces the gametes, one capital T and small t. So then the first generation, that is F1 generation, is produced, which gives us capital T small t. This is self generation, right? So then this capital T small t and capital T small t, they fuses to form four gametes of capital T small t, capital T small t. Then this capital T small t, capital T small t. So first this capital T fuses with another capital T. So it gives us first capital T, capital T. Then this small t fuses with capital T. So it gives us capital T small t, that is tall generation. Then another capital T fuses with capital T. So it gives us capital T small t. And the small t fuses with another small t, which gives us small t, that is dwarf generation. So this is the monohybrid cross, and now you have to display it in the form of a checkerboard. So how will you do it? Here it's given in your right. So here two generations you will write. Here you will write down capital T, small t in one box in the row, and in the column also you will write down capital T, small t. Then first capital T you will fuse with the second capital T, so you will get capital T, capital T. Then this small t you will fuse with capital T, you will get capital T small t. Then capital T you will fuse with the small t, which is given in the row, you will get capital T small t, and the small t you will fuse with small t given in the row, so it will get small t, that is dwarf. So these are, first one is the tall and then dwarf. So there comes the ratio 3:1. 3 are tall and 1 is dwarf. So generation comes out to be 3:1. So that's with this we complete the monohybrid inheritance, that is the monohybrid cross. In the next class we will study about the dihybrid cross. So that's all for today. I hope you are clear with the concept of monohybrid inheritance. If you have any doubt you can ask. Thank you and have a great day.